Stampede Blue. What we talking about? Indianapolis, AFC South. Stampede Blue, let's air it out. Fly route, let's air it out. Topics, loaded like offense. Cold-centric, talking about it often. Stampede Blue, let's air it out. Fly route, let's air it out.
Welcome back to the Stampede Blue Colts cast, ladies and gentlemen. If I didn't blow your eardrums, you can listen in here and watch at YouTube, on our YouTube page, or you can just catch the podcast later on. So, guys, with me tonight, Stephen Moore from Stampede Blue. Stephen, what's up, brother?
Not much. Just ready to talk about the schedule.
Yes,
that was released today. The big thing.
We're the fools that are actually doing a podcast over the Colts schedule when they actually released most of their opponents and stuff, month and a half ago.
But it does matter. It matters when they play them.
It does. There's a lot to what actually goes into it. I mean, there's a few. All right, let's get this out of the way. What's the first thing that jumps out to you about their schedule?
The first thing that jumps out to me is the bye weeks right there in the middle of the season. I love that.
Yeah, me too. Week 9's it's perfect. Well, the Colts have been at 8-10 a lot over the past few years. With their bye week, and I think that works out well for them. Not only does that work out well for them when you consider injury, but the splits on each side of that bye week are pretty intense as well. When you look at all the away games to start the week, or to start the year, you got 2 of your first 3 weeks you're on the road to the Redskins and the Eagles, then you go on the road to the Patriots and the Jets, and then you go on the road to the Raiders, all before the bye week. So the Colts have, I mean, there's a lot that goes into the way that schedules are pulled out. The funny thing about this is that only one of their AFC South games are in the first half of the season. I mean, they are literally just banging out AFC South guys in the second half of the season. They only have the Dolphins, Giants, Cowboys, other than AFC South in the second half of the season. So, I mean, is there any of these games that like specifically stand out to you as far as like, it's really hard to tell. Obviously, we haven't even had the draft yet. We don't know who's going to be injured. We don't know who's going to be late pickups for teams. We don't know who's going to be playing, who's not going to be playing for certain squads. I mean, and a lot of things go into this. Does a coach suck at certain, with specific teams? Have they just not felt their rebuild? Do one of these teams get streaky, against the Colts? Do the Colts end up being a streaky team? All of this is stuff that we aren't possibly going to be able to really give an honest explanation about until the season starts, for the most part. And then even then, we don't know about injuries and everything else that are going to pop up throughout the season. But it still is interesting. I mean, Bengals starting off the season. It's nice that the Colts have a couple games that have had some turnover and are probably looking to far better themselves as soon as possible with the Bengals and the Redskins in weeks 1 and 2. Then you go up against your 2 of your next 3 games are against the Super Bowl participants from last year. So, I mean, that in itself is a tough first 5 weeks to the year, right?
Put in the first divisional games in between them.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that, but they'll have Deshaun Watson back. They're going to have J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless back. All those guys, they're murderers row of a front 7, plus their quarterback who started out the season really strong last year. And that's, that adds for some intrigue, if nothing else. So anything else about the first half of the season other than how many away games the Colts have and kind of, the teams that they're playing up against? Most of this is their non-AFC South part of the schedule. It's really weird how that's kind of split.
Yeah, I was going to say it is pretty odd to see that the schedule is so front-loaded with teams not in the division. Normally the Colts play a couple divisional matchups before the bye week. So it is a little bit surprising to see that is set up the way it is. One thing that I will say that is intriguing is the fact that the front part of the season is when you play all those cold weather teams. And so when you get to the back half of the season, which is just mid-November, all of December, I'm going to look to St. in weather. The fact is you play Buffalo in October, or you play New England in October, the Eagles and Redskins both in September, the Jets in October. You got a lot of good weather matchups there at the beginning of the season, at least in terms of cold and snow and getting to avoid it. Yeah, because at the end of the season, I mean, you look at the last 8 weeks of the season and home games, and then your away games are all divisional games.
Yeah, absolutely. Their home game against the Giants, that's indoors. That's nice. The only one there towards the end, I think, where they have a legitimate shot at snow is at the Titans in week 17. So, I mean,
and I'll tell you, Nashville, there's like even a dusting of snow, the whole city shut down. So they handle snow about as well as we do out here in Virginia. They don't know what to do with it.
So let's look at the quarterback. Let's look at the quarterbacks of these teams, because that's ultimately what we feel like every year once we start talking about this schedule. That's what seems to matter. Teams got defense, teams got, some tertiary players. That's great. But quarterbacks is what matters for the most part in the NFL. Dalton, Alex Smith and his new home. Then, we get to the Eagles with wow, my brain's going crazy here.
Carson
Wentz. Jesus, I was already thinking about Deshaun Watson. Yeah. Deshaun, Brady, whoever ends up being the quarterback for the Jets, and then whoever.
Brady's even there, I mean, he might retire.
Yeah. You get whoever the quarterback is for the Jets that they draft. Bills might be drafting a quarterback of the future, and then Carr. That's all in the half of the season. So, what are your thoughts about those guys?
The thing is with the front part of the season is I think that based on the quarterback play, like you realize the Jets and Bills are probably rolling with rookies. At that point, like week 6 and 7, they're probably looking at putting the rookies in. The Raiders, you've got Derek Carr, but John Gruden seems like he wants to be a throwback to like the mid 90s. So who knows how much they'll even use Carr and Amari Cooper there. Mm-hmm. You look at Alex Smith in week 1 or Alex Smith in week 2 and then Andy Dalton in week 1. Neither of those guys scare me. The Redskins aren't great. So I legit think the Colts could start 2-0. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Now they could also lose the next 3 games,
right,
and then win the next 3 games. So it's one of those things where I could legitimately see going into the bye week that they're looking at a record of 5-3, 4-4, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The Patriots, who knows how that game's going to go?
Right.
Both teams are playing off a short week on a Thursday night game, and there's obviously going to be some emotion in that one, at least from the front office standpoint. That might not translate to players on the field at all, but I think the players are also, at least the Colts players felt a little scorned in that as well. I think they'll be over it because I think that they got a better option there with Frank Reich. But
right, and I think when you look at as far as that goes, so much of this roster is different than even it was just 2 years ago. So I think, there is obviously, that hate relationship between Colts and Pats fans for the most part, as far as the football side of it.
Well, they're jerks, so.
Right. But you get, you do get a little bit more intrigue with the whole McDaniels, Frank Reich situation and all that. But I just look, starting, this, whatever you want to call it, this new version of the Colts Patriots battle here, it doesn't bode well for the Colts that it's in New England. That's kind of my first thought about it.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying with it, that they've never really played well in New England.
No.
But I also think that you look at it from the standpoint of the past couple coaches that they've had haven't been exceedingly great in terms of Chuck Pagano and Jim Caldwell and that whole crew. And it's a different team. That's the thing. And New England's got to replace a lot of players in their offensive line. Who knows what Gronk's going to do? I mean, no one knows, and I think people are underestimating what the Colts could do with a healthy Andrew Luck. Like everybody said, as we all know, going to halftime last year, they were one of the better teams. I think there were 8 games or something they were leading or going into the halftime of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And you lost like all of them.
Right.
Like, we all know that Pagano happens and that's what happened there.
Right.
But
we had Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, and he was one of the most god-awful quarterbacks in the league in the fourth quarter.
Well, yeah. And part of that, though, we can go on this part for like an hour, but I know that we want to keep this one short. But I do think Frank Reich's going to make a huge difference in terms of play calling, whether it's Andrew Luck or Jacoby Brissett next year, in terms of getting the ball out quicker and trying not to put him in 5 and 7 step drops, to have him run go routes or have him throw go routes. Like, that's just dumb if you don't have an offensive line that can block.
Right. And I mean, look, let's see. What did I count? 15 of the Colts' 16 games are against teams who have been in the playoffs, at least in some form or fashion, over the past 3 years. Granted, a lot can change with teams in 3 years. There's no two ways about it. But just the same, like I said, we're playing both of the guys who were in the Super Bowl last year. We're playing two division rivals ultimately that got to the playoffs last year, and one, specifically the Jaguars, winning in spite of Blake Bortles, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
So much of the acquisition of talent that those two teams have kind of had, the Titans don't seem on the same level to me right now, and I think I'm just not really. Mariota doesn't scare me, even though the Colts have typically allowed quarterbacks who get the ball out quickly to just eat them alive. The other thing about this is that Houston, I mean, it's hard to say with Deshaun Watson being injured so early in the season, but those Texans are going to be a thorn in the side of the Colts this year. I mean, they get them in just kind of spaced out nicely. Week 4 in the first half of the season, they get them in the 5th week after the bye as well. So, I mean, they're going to be playing at least 2 teams, in my opinion, who are going to be really good and difficult teams for the Colts to hang with, but for completely different reasons. And the Titans are kind of just that middle of the road team right now. And the Colts, nobody knows what the Colts are right now. The draft is going to make a massive difference in what the Colts look like, even if it's only a game or two. The talent level is what I'm getting at, not so much wins and losses. But the Colts really are going to be battling hard just to be in the top 2 of the division this year, I think. I mean, regardless, a lot of people are putting the stock into Andrew Luck because he comes back, everything's going to be fine and dandy. Look, you just don't come back from being off for a year and a half just like that and be right back on the horse again. That's just not how it goes. And if Andrew Luck does really come back and just start killing it, early in the season, it's an outlier. It's not something that should be expected.
I expect it.
You do?
No.
I was going to say, of course you do, Steven.
I have the utmost expectations for this Colts team. No, and that's the thing, is that people do need to temper their expectations.
We do this.
This could be a rough year, but again, Andrew Luck could win him a couple games, maybe get him to 9-10 wins, and you're in there for a wild card spot. Also, the schedule is tough. Jacksonville and Houston both upgraded a lot in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in a year or two, when their caps in just salary cap purgatory and they can't do anything at all and sign their own guys, then that's going to be a little bit tougher for them and they're going to drop out. But I do agree with you though in terms of Tennessee and the Titans. Who knows what Mike Vrabel is going to bring as a coach, and how he's going to change and mold that team. I'm not necessarily sold on what he brings to the table. And so I'll be really interested to see how it all turns out. I think in November that you start off after the bye week 10, you get home, and then 3 weeks later you go back to Jacksonville. So that's a tough turnaround to see the same team within basically a month.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And then have, just like you said, having all those divisional games right there, just home Jacksonville, home Tennessee, at Jacksonville, at Houston. Like, those are going to be tough games. And people need to understand it. I think that they could probably pull a couple of those out, but who knows?
Well, there's nobody in the division that's unbeatable, but there's definitely been a shift. I mean, when you consider the loss of Andrew Luck, when you consider the downgrade in talent just overall throughout the majority of the roster, that just puts them in the chaser. Now they are, they've got to become the predator, because if they don't, they're going to get just blown out by a couple of these teams. Even that's the sad thing. Even with Bortles, the Jaguars nearly made it to the Super Bowl last year. And that blows my mind altogether. Is there a game on here, man, that you can circle right now that you think is a guaranteed win?
Miami.
Really, Miami? You go with Miami, not Buffalo or New York or the Jets, huh?
Now you're looking for guaranteed win,
yeah.
And you're telling me circle one game. I'm picking Miami at home.
Why is that?
Because I don't think they've got very good talent on their roster at all. They're going to be playing either Ryan Tannehill or a rookie quarterback. I love Frank Gore, but he's not going to be able to fix their offensive line, and they don't have much of a defense either after losing Ndamukong Suh, so they don't have any interior pressure, and they don't have a pass rush. So even if it's Jacoby Brissett playing at that point, I don't feel like the Dolphins can hang. That's exactly why, in terms of any kind of draft day trades, I'd like to get their first round pick next year.
Yeah,
because I think it's going to be a top 5.
I would circle the Jets if it were, just any other time. But the Jets really did pretty well last year without much of anything to speak of as for.
A defense.
Yeah, and their offensive coordinator got fired right after really having a nice season offensively with basically McCown, and that's about it. Mm-hmm. The Bills might be the one that I would circle there, but I think as far as throughout the season, because and I guess the only thing that keeps me away from New York and Dallas or just even Miami for that matter is that Miami can get significantly better in my opinion through the draft, but they're not a team like the Bills who has a bunch of draft picks to do it with. I just think that the Oakland game is just jumping out at me because I could not be happier that Gruden is not an Indianapolis Colts coach. You know what I'm saying? And I think
exactly.
I feel bad for, and Gruden may turn out to be a great coach for these guys. I don't see it. I don't think that that's the way it's going to turn out. So I have no problem saying this, but I feel bad for Raiders fans because I think they deserve, after being, so bad there for the Jamarcus Russell years and just a good portion of that whole time. Then you're going to come back and you're going to bring a new coach in. He gets rid of, kind of your complimentary, or actually probably their number one last year in Crabtree. And you're going to focus the entire offense around a guy who has screwed me out of 2 straight fantasy seasons. I don't see that being the right way to go. I just don't, man. And Khalil Mack, stud, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, who do they draft? Who knows? But if they can get that defense up, then basically you've got a good defense. And Derek Carr, I just don't feel like he's going to have much to work with offensively this year. I really don't. And I don't even know that he is the kind of guy who can, kind of pack that team on his back and move them forward that way. I just don't. I think there's too much turnover, too many issues going on right now with Oakland before they can kind of be back to a legitimate playoff team. So that game really intrigues me, especially after, that's 7 weeks for John Gruden to get a handle on today's NFL and not, 40 rush attempts per game with.
I hope he sticks with it.
2 fullbacks.
He just keeps chopping wood. That's what I hope. He just keeps chopping wood. No, but honestly, those 3 games in there, that week 6 through 8 with at the Jets, home for the Bills, and at the Raiders, I agree with you. All 3 of those games are winnable games, and those would have been 1A is the Dolphins, and then probably the Bills, since it's going to be a home game. would have been my 2 spot, and then probably the Raiders, and then the Jets. Like, I think that middle part of the schedule right there, from weeks like 6 to 12, like you've got four, maybe 5 really winnable games. And then you get the Jaguars at home. So they could run off a stretch of games where they're really playing well and running up some points and getting really into a groove right when they need to be.
Mm-hmm. I think when you look at the Colts' opportunity for this year, even with a really good draft, let's say the Colts have a really good draft, they get some solid defensive help. The defense has a pretty good year. They end up getting another weapon or two, that actually have some impact. The problem with the thoughts of winning the division is like I said, the Jaguars are winning in spite of their quarterback, but their quarterback could blow a crap ton of games for them next year. You have to hope for that. You have to hope for Mariota and the new coaching to just not jive, and maybe the defense not to be on the same page or something like that most of the season. And then you've got to hope for Deshaun Watson to kind of have, kind of a fallback year coming back in off an injury. And
it's a lot of hope.
It is. But if some of that occurs, the Colts can be a fairly 500 or slightly better team and probably be within a game or two most of the season of being, at least in the eyes of a contender for the division, I think.
Yeah, because realistically, nobody's going to run away in this division. Yeah. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah, I guess this had a really long-winded way of saying that.
Yeah, like New England and the AFC East runs away. They get like the division locked up by like week 11, like every year.
Yeah.
And so like this year, like with the AFC South, it's going to be competitive, and it might be one of the more competitive divisions in the NFL, not because they're all really bad, but because they're all actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Can draft this year, which I have the utmost faith in Chris Ballard after last year's draft. I think that he hit it pretty well.
Yeah, I do too.
And so I think that if he sticks to his guns and makes some good moves, he's already shown that he's made a good move with the trade with the Jets to pick up all those picks. People don't understand how huge that trade is in terms of getting talent and value, where second rounders are very valuable picks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and that's the thing is like people, you look at the schedule. I don't know whether you want to do a rundown, see where we're at, wins, losses, just on this, but there's only a handful of games that I think that the Colts are probably going to be outmatched in.
Yeah.
And outside of that, if you got a healthy Andrew Luck, those other games are a toss-up. They're 50-50 games, and I think that, I'm going to hedge my bet that Luck can win a few of those.
Yeah. Well, let's do that. This is really way too early kind of stuff, but fun nevertheless. So let's just do it, man.
Let's on record. Let's do it.
There you go. Because we're all about projection right now. Let's go to the Bengals.
No promises, Matt.
You got them winning or losing?
Bengals. Week 1, I got a win for the Colts.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go a loss. I still haven't.
You're terrible. You're killing me already. First week.
Yeah, I know. But the Colts have been 0-2 for how many years in a row now? Why? I don't know that a coach can necessarily.
Pagano.
Yeah, but everything. Colts have a lot of new stuff going on.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
So, all right, we're different on that. Let's hit the Redskins in week 2.
All right, you go first this time.
All right, I'm going to give them the win against the Redskins. I think the Redskins have even more going on, and a change in quarterback isn't one of their worries, in my opinion. It's that they maybe that they fail to get this defense back to where they showed the potential of last year. And I think that their offense is a little injury riddled, I guess is a better word to say. So I think that the Colts have definitely an opportunity to win that one. I'm going to go win on that. I got them 1-1 right now.
I'll take it the win for at Washington because, one, I'm probably going to be going to that game. And 2, because Redskins are maybe the most mismanaged team in the NFL. Like Bruce Allen has no idea what he's doing. And I hear, but they are like, nobody knows what he's doing.
Right.
And I don't know if he does.
Can you imagine how lucky you would feel if you were a Redskins fan and you had Kirk Cousins? I mean, people tear up Kirk Cousins a lot, but he's kind of the only thing that kept that team.
He kept him in games.
Yeah,
like that's the thing is like him and Jordan and Reed kept him in games,
right?
And that's all they had.
Mm-hmm.
Their wide receivers are hit or miss every week. It was bad.
Yeah.
And they got no running back. They need to improve their defense. Their defensive line is nothing, and they don't have a pass rush right now. So
yeah, they're in pretty ugly shape. So all right. Week 3 at the Eagles. I think this is a pretty safe bet to say this is a loss.
Yeah, probably a loss. Yeah.
Probably a loss. Unless I tell you what, the only thing that makes this a win for the Colts, and this is in this game with the Eagles, is multiple turnovers. Honestly, I mean, if this secondary is just on fire for the Colts, and helps them kind of move their way through the first few weeks and looks good, becomes somewhat of a strength, I suppose you could say. I think that's the only way the Colts could even have a shot at beating the Eagles, especially in Philly. That's a really tall order against a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, even with turnovers, I still think it's going to be a stretch just because the Eagles have such a good pass rush, and they're able to put both pressure on the outside and pressure in the interior, and that just kills quarterbacks, especially the interior pressure. And they just traded for Michael Bennett. They've added another player at a position of strength. It's like strength on strength for them, and I just don't. I would love it if they won. And I would love to. Yeah, I just don't see it.
That could be a major boost for this Colts team, beating Super Bowl champions in week 3 with a new coach and Andrew Luck back, and that could be storyline worthy in week 3. So keep your eyes on that, guys. So I'm going with loss too. I assume that you are too. And week 4 at home against the Texans. It's a 1:00 game against the Texans. That doesn't mean anything necessarily realistic, but to me, it means something. I think the Colts pull this one out. I like the Colts playing at 1:00 at home, and especially against the Texans. So I'm going to go with a win here right now. Colts are 2-2 on mine.
I too will go with a win on this one. I just don't. The Texans beat the Colts for the first time in Indianapolis just through the past couple of years, and it was kind of a fluky thing, as it were. The Houston just doesn't play well up here.
Yeah.
Matter of factly, and as you said, it's a 1:00 start, which in Houston, I believe, is either a noon or an 11 o'clock start.
Yeah.
In terms of their local time, so it's a little bit tough for players, even just that slight change in their schedules to get ready. So yeah, at the quarter mark of the season, I have them at 3-1.
Okay. I'm going to rattle off my next 4 here just because I think I see these pretty clearly, and they don't need a whole lot of analysis, in my opinion. The Colts are
do it at the same time.
Colts are going to lose in New England. The Colts are going to win in New York. They're going to lose at home to the Bills. It's going to be one of those weird games, I think. And I think that the Colts are going to lose to Oakland as well. So what do I got them at? 2-2, 2-3, 3-3, 3-5 through 8 games.
All right, Mr. Brightside today.
Kind of strange. Cup half full on your end, huh?
I know. Well, I'm always a little bit more optimistic about it. Let's see. Week 5, the Patriots. Honestly, I think that's going to be a loss. Week 6, the Jets. Back and forth on that one. I'm going to throw that one as the kink right there and say that's a loss. And then week 7, I'm going to say that's a win. And week 8, I'm also going to put that as a win.
Oh.
So I am sitting at 4-4.
I think that the Colts lose to Oakland more because of the West Coast.
I'm 5-3.
Yeah. Oh, we are exact opposites right now, huh?
Yeah.
I think that the Colts lose just because of that West Coast trip, to be quite honest with you. I think that's more of the issue. The 4:00 start time just is a kind of a weird window for the Colts. It's not as bad as their prime time, but the Colts really, I mean, and it's just because of that they're just not one of those premier teams that the league wants to be in the afternoon or the evening game. So they play a lot of 1:00 games. I guess it makes more sense that they're a little more successful in those, but
I think my big thing with the Raiders is I don't know what Gruden's going to do
right
at this point, and if he's kind of going with what he's shown that he wants to do in terms of like take it back. Yeah, Khalil Mack's a great player on defense, but you're not going to score points,
right?
Like, and I'm under the assumption that at some point during this draft, that Ballard's going to address the pass rush because he's kind of has to.
Right.
That or that the players are going to step up and play, because I think last year's draft was, you look at the picks, they're pretty clearly set for the 4-3, and they just translate well to that 4-3 defense. So it makes me think that this was his plan the entire time. Right. But yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in the Raiders. They're so hit or miss, and they have been for the past 2 years, with better talent on offense and defense.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're going to be kind of an interesting bunch too. I think they were picked to win the West last year, and then man, things just fell apart. It was expected to be a tougher division as well, and then they just kind of slid. So after the first 8 games, I've got them at 3-5. Not intentionally. It just, we're looking so far ahead. It just seems like feel. Steven's got him at 5-3, Mr. Cup half full over there. So
I almost have him at 6-2. That Jets game is just, I kind of want to say that
too.
Yeah,
that's craziness. So we'll come back with the second half of the schedule. Our way too early predictions for the Colts 28 schedule right after this. All right, guys, welcome back. Let's go to the second half of the schedule now for the Colts. Starting off, as we talked about earlier, with a couple of AFC South matchups. Steven, we're going to get these two one at a time here. So, okay. Jaguars loss for me. It just is. I mean, it's at home. It doesn't matter. The Colts aren't good against the Jaguars when they do play. They're not that Houston Texans matchup, and the Jaguars are legitimately better on paper and on the field right now. And unless, Blake Bortles can be, the guy who's just handing the ball to the Colts several times in this game, I just don't see that the Colts are going to be able to make a realistic run, I don't think, at this one. I think they've got too much talent there.
Yeah, I think, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I'm going to have them win out the rest of the games because I'm so far. No, I think they will probably take a loss here against Jacksonville. Like the Jaguars are legit, and especially on defense, like that defense is solid. And with the addition of Andrew Norwell, they're just adding to what they wanted to do anyway. Like they want to run the ball down your throat with Leonard Fournette and keep the ball out of Blake Bortles' hands. And that's what they're going to be able to do with what they've got.
Yeah, I agree. All right, start us off with the Titans.
I'm going to say that's a win since it's at home. I just don't see – it's the first matchup against the Titans with Mike Vrabel. At that point, I think that the Colts are going to have a pretty good idea of what they're starting to do in terms of Marcus Mariota and what they're trying to do on defense. And I think Frank Reich at that point is going to be able to work his offensive scheme to take advantage of their deficiencies.
I
convinced you, didn't I?
No, not necessarily. I think that the Titans are one of those teams who could, they're looking for a lot of similar things that the Colts are right now. Not scheme specific, I guess, but they are looking a lot. They're looking very similar to the Colts meetings and such that they're having with these players. And if they were to land some of the guys that they're talking to, they could really boost up the talent of that roster, in my opinion, in a pretty quick fashion. So I'm I'm gonna go with the loss here at home.
At home?
Yeah, the first matchup against the Titans, I think, is gonna be a bit of a struggle. So we're gonna go with that one. 2 losses to start. Not see, nobody's gonna love me after this, man.
No, you're pretty much the worst.
3-7 is what I got them at right now. Not happy campers after 10 weeks, 10 games. So, all right. I'll start with the Dolphins. This is going to be a win. We're going to do this as a win here. Colts are now 4-7, back in the hunt. Several teams are at 5-6 wins, back in the hunt at 4-7, and they're going to take out the Dolphins. And I think this is the game where Adam Gase gets fired because the Colts smash.
That's what we're projecting at this point.
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and go out on limb. I also am gonna have that this is a win because as we talked about earlier, this was my lock of the season where I think that this is a definite win. This is put in an ink kind of thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can dig that.
So I have them sitting at what, like 7-4 right now.
We're exact opposites again.
Opposites, yeah.
So I think that the Jaguars sweep the Colts. We'll put it that way. So 4-8 right now. Colts are out of playoff contention as far as I'm concerned. For the most part, probably at this point, are really close to it. And Jaguars are just going to have to sweep them. I think that the Colts could probably split with the Texans and Titans. I think, and that's probably how I'm going to do this. But I think the Jaguars are just too good defensively. God, this is so disgusting saying that when I can't quit saying with Blake Bortles at quarterback because he's freaking awful.
Because it really is the qualifier in there where you're like, oh, man, they have such a good defense, but Blake Bortles?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
I also will have this as a loss. Like, the Colts haven't played well in Jacksonville for the past few years. I don't expect that changing, and that's even with Andrew Luck.
Mm-hmm.
So I have them right now at the 3-quarter mark, 7-5, and solidly in the playoff hunt because I love the Colts.
You're making me out to be the villain tonight for sure. Well, I'm making myself out to be the villain for the most part.
I was going to say, I was like, I'm not making you out anything. I'm just kind of pushing fuel on the fire.
Trying to put me into a depression, but
no.
Here because the Colts are going on the road and they're gonna they're gonna sweep the Texans, huh? Okay, they're gonna go into Houston and they're gonna win. They're gonna sweep the Texans because I don't know, just because it's the Texans, I guess. Even though they're gonna be really good, I think.
No, really,
none of this makes any sense.
I actually want to have them lose this game.
Okay.
Because I just don't. I'm not sure how they're going to play on the road. So I am. Yeah. I'm going to have them lose this game.
So 5-7 is where I've got the Colts. I believe 3-5.
No, you got to be more than that.
I think I am. I can't count.
You got to be like 8-5 right now because you got 3 games left.
Yeah, you're right. So it went 3-5 in the first half, lost the first 2 games. So 3-7. They're at 4-7.
4-8. You're at 5-8.
5-8. So I think that going into the Cowboys game, this is kind of a tricky one. Does Prescott, Zeke, do those guys just dominate this Colts? I don't think so.
They don't have a defense.
No. They don't have a defense, and I think that they're going to be pretty bereft of playmakers outside of Ezekiel and Dak.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see, they can have a great offensive line, man, but they don't have guys who can catch the ball or be playmakers. They're going to draft a wide receiver. They pretty much tip their hand with getting rid of Dez, in my opinion, and they're going to probably draft one pretty high. So I still just don't see them as being a great team this year. So I'm going to give the Colts a win here. So where are we at? 6-8? Yeah.
Yeah, you're at 6-8. This one I actually, man, I just don't know. I think I will give them. I can't give them no. I think this is going to be a loss. because I just don't think that defense will hold up against that offensive line.
Mm.
Oh no, you know what? I'm gonna give them a win because their Cowboys defense really does suck.
Yeah.
And they really don't have a playmaker at wide receiver. And at this point, it's late in the season, so the rookies typically will hit a wall at that point.
Yeah. Hopefully Frank Reich just throws the entire wall at them, on defense at their running game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll give them a win. I got them at 8-6, and I'm starting to not feel great about this because that's a lot of wins.
Yeah, it is. So, all right, start us in with New York.
You know what? I'm going to give. It really just depends. I like the moves that Gettleman's made so far this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And it really will depend on who they draft. Like if they draft Saquon Barkley with this pick or Quentin Nelson this next week, how great is that? Next week's the draft.
Don't say it. Don't say it. It'll become longer. It'll stretch itself out.
Yeah, wait, what? No, it's still the same amount of time. It doesn't change.
No, that's not. Nope. Just like Christmas.
Feel long. Anyway, so if they draft Saquon Barkley, then I think they're probably going to be in a better spot to win this game. If they draft a quarterback, then I think it's going to be the Colts that wins this game. And so I'm gonna go under the assumption that they're going to take Saquon Barkley, or Saquon Barkley, and I'm going to say that the Giants will win this game.
See, I was running through some of that myself, and I think that the Giants here are going to hate themselves for taking anybody but Bradley Chubb because they're going to wish he was there. I think that the Cleveland Browns. I hope that the Cleveland Browns do something stupid at number 4. Like trade out for someone coming up to get a quarterback. And then the Colts can have Bradley Chubb kind of land in their lap. So they're going to hate themselves for not drafting him at 2. Bradley Chubb's going to just annihilate Eli Manning here. He's going to maybe have 2 or 3 strip sacks. And the Colts are going to run away with this one. So I got this as a win.
All right.
So
last game of the season at the Titans.
7-8 right now. Ooh.
Oh, and you don't feel great now, do you?
No, I don't. But here's the thing. I did say they're going to split with them, and I didn't split with the Texans. I actually have us sweeping the Texans. So I'm actually going to have us split with the Titans as well. So the Colts get to 8-8, still not into the playoffs, but kind of in draft purgatory next year for the 2019 draft, finishing up 8-8 with a win in Nashville. And the Colts look a little bit better going into the 2019 season, getting ready for another draft. And we're doing this painful wait, as we've already done this year, all over again, because then we start thinking that the Colts are going to be really good.
Because they are.
Yeah. Yes. Because
I'm going to have them win at the Titans as well. I'm actually going to have them sweep the Titans.
Oh.
And I think I had them sweep the Titans and split with the Texans. So I will have them end at 9-7.
All right. So we started completely different, kind of ended up in the same home. So I think that those are both pretty maybe not the games, obviously, like we said at the jump.
But the records are, that's kind of how you feel looking at the schedule. You're like, they could be anywhere from like 6-10 to 10-6.
Yeah.
And anywhere in between, you wouldn't be surprised.
Right. If the Colts had an offensive line, and they already had 2 established backs with Marlon Mack and another guy who can carry kind of the bulk of the load, and the Colts had a legitimate run-stopping front 7, then I think the Colts could win 9-10 games, maybe even 11 games out of this schedule. But they don't, and they're not, and that's not what they've got in their arsenal. So I think last year I had them pegged to 8-8 too. Or something close, and we
were all under the assumption that Luck was coming back.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
I think I had him at like 11-5 or something like that, or 12-4. It was sick.
And for the record, we still are under the assumption that Luck's going to be back.
If Luck doesn't come back, then these don't count.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go ahead and preface that now, or I guess we can't preface it because we've already done it, but.
We'll do this again.
We'll add that asterisk at the end. It's like all of the New England championships. They don't really count because you know.
So that is our way to extraordinary coverage of the Colts 2018 schedule. And let's do some quick news, some interesting things that have happened, Stephen. Dwight Freeney is going to retire. He's going to take a temporary contract or whatever they call those.
Yeah, 1 day contract. Yeah,
1 day contract to retire as a Colt. I think that's awesome. I didn't expect any different, nor do I think anybody really did. But it's awesome. Just I hate that he's kind of retiring, man, because you saw him get that lifeblood again with Atlanta. He played really pretty well for Seattle in the short amount of time that he played with them. He almost made me feel like he could come back this year and give somebody a legitimate, single down, third down pass help. And yeah, I so love to see him coming back to actually retire as a Colt, which, like I said, none of us didn't expect that. But kind of a bittersweet to the fact that he's actually retiring. I don't want him to retire, even though he's not playing for the Colts. I want to see him continue to create pressure as an old man in the NFL. So
I wonder if the Colts will bring him in like they did Robert Mathis to work with some of the pass rushers, since they are switching over to that 4-3.
That would be cold. I would love that.
And so, yeah, like honestly, like who would be a better teacher to a 4-3 defensive end that's trying to get to the quarterback than Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis, at least in today's NFL?
Can you imagine that? Once the great pass rushing duo is now the Colts pass rushing coaching duo. That would be kind of funny.
I like it.
Yeah. Also, kind of the fun with the draft in itself. NFL Network's going to have camera inside several teams' war room, and the Colts are one of those. They've done this the past few years, and they don't really get too too kind of intricate with it or anything like that. They typically show them constantly shuffling papers, watching the draft, and then you see
sitting back like this.
Yes, and a bunch of handshakes and high fives after the first pick. And I mean,
and you have people hold up the cards.
Right.
It just reminds me of Philip Dorsett. It just makes me angry. Now I'm mad.
The funnest thing about this for me is looking at their board. When you get a couple shots of it, you can't tell who's on that board, but you get to see how kind of the board is structured. It's really interesting to me to see how they've got all these guys on a board, where they're listed, guys X'd out, guys pasted on top of others, and so on and so forth. That's fun for me to see that, because then you see how many of these players these guys actually have on the board. That's really cool.
Well, and then you think about it, is even the board itself is not all the players that they scouted. Like any team will have somewhere between like 100 to 150 draftable players. And that's how you rank your board. And even though there's 256 picks in the draft, I think.
Yep.
Is the number?
Yes, sir.
But even though there's 256 picks, like you don't have that many people on your board, because everybody, values guys differently.
Right.
But just to see, to see it all and see the board in the background and say, see how much work they put into it. And it's throughout the whole year process, and see the final product.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It is really cool.
I can't wait to see Chris Ballard just going like this. Like just looking at the camera, and then you just that blue steel face, that the face thing that they do.
He's going to be excited. I think he's going to turn towards one of the cameras and pose. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great.
I can see that.
I love that.
He'd be standing there looking like he's looking over the TV and everything, seeing what's going on behind him, and then the camera,
these things.
Yeah, comes to his side.
Yeah, I like it.
He's going to hit him
great. This is still live. We're still live, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. We're not just talking. Oh, shit. All right. Guys, we're going to get out of here, but I wanted to remind you that we are doing the live show at Metazoa Brewing Company in Indianapolis, 140 South College Avenue. Really a cool opportunity for us to be live, get you guys there. And we're going to stream it here on YouTube. It should be a really cool setup. It's going to be great. Everybody's going to be drunk and not being able to focus and pay attention. And I'm kidding. It's not. It's going to be
that's
great.
like every Colts cast.
Yeah, right. So honestly, love for you guys to come out and join us. It'd be fun to talk to you guys. And if not, you guys always have the option here on YouTube to check it out. So we appreciate you guys and everything that you're doing. Thank you guys all for the success with the draft guide. That really turned out really well. That was really awesome with how you guys kind of backed us on that. We appreciate the support. We appreciate the support at the podcast, on the site, and all of us individually. We love interacting with you guys on Twitter as well. Steven, where can they catch you on Twitter, brother man?
My Twitter handle is Reed_NFL, REED_NFL.
You're a nerd. Got the underscore. I took that out of my name, so I'm cool now.
I thought about doing it. I might. But now I've said it on the live broadcast, I can't. So
yeah,
pretty much locked into it now.
Yeah, no chance. No chance. Nobody will ever find you. Take the underscore out.
Yeah, right.
Thank you guys all for watching. We'll talk to you guys next time right here on the Colts Cast.